Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and Apple released iPadOS 26 Beta 4. This update is available to developers, and hopefully by the time you're watching this video, iPadOS 26 Public Beta 1 will be out as well. However, that does seem to be a little bit later than we would have expected, but hopefully it's out very soon, if not already. Now this came in at a fairly large 12.33 gigabytes. That's on the iPad Pro M4 13-inch and was about the same size on iOS as well, as Apple also released iOS 26 Beta 4 updates for macOS 26, tvOS and HomePodOS 26, along with visionOS 26 and watchOS 26. So we all got a Beta 4 update, and they do have some new changes and features. This particular update is build number 23A5297I. That just lets you know which version you're on, as it doesn't specify beta 1, 2, 3, or 4. And as far as new features, well, the first thing is liquid glass continues to change. If we go into the control center, you can see that here, where we still have that sort of glass effect that you can see behind. And if we go into light mode, it's a little bit more obvious. So let's bring the light brightness down just a little bit, and then we'll go into something maybe such as music. So within music, we have more of a glass effect down here on the play bar. However, depending on what you're looking at, it may have more of a frosted glass effect, but it's somewhere in between beta 2 and beta 3. So it looks like they're continuing to change this. I would expect them to continue to change this throughout. If we go into another app, maybe podcasts, you'll see it here as well. So maybe we'll go to new, let it load, and this has more of a glass effect than music did. So we see this again change throughout depending on which app you're in, and it varies greatly, and I think they'll continue to change it throughout. If we go into TV, give it a second to load, we don't really see a whole lot here. We'll go to home. Again, give it a second, and we're not seeing a whole lot of obvious glass here, but again, we'll see this updated in the future. So I think we'll see more and more of this again continue to change throughout the beta updates. Now the first change here as well is a new update to a wallpaper. If we go into wallpaper, go to our new wallpaper. Within wallpaper, we have many of the same wallpaper they added with previous betas, but you'll see one keeps changing because it's now dynamic. So you can set a new dynamic wallpaper. You'll see it change here. So we can swipe through to the different options or wait for it to cycle on its own on your lock screen. So you can change this however you'd like, and you'll see it continue to cycle through the different colors here. So it cycles between light and dark mode, and I think it looks pretty good. I would love to see them add more of these dynamic wallpaper across the OS and give us the option to do that as well. Now, if we cancel this, and then go back out. So maybe we'll get out of our wallpaper here, go back to what we had before. You may have already noticed that when I'm on the notification screen, it dims the background. This is something that's a little bit different behavior. So you'll see if I swipe the notifications off the screen lightens up. If I swipe up here just a little bit, it darkens them so you can see the overall notification a little bit better. So it darkens that background, and then again, goes back to normal if you swipe them away or clear them. So that's a slight change in the overall interface. And going along with notifications, when you first boot up the iPad after installing Beta 4, this is true on iOS as well. If you have an Apple Intelligence supporting device, it will actually ask you if you want to turn on summarize notifications. Now, this is something I opted to do, and there was a new option here as well. You can see I posted on Threads the same sort of setup process on iOS 26 Beta 4, but basically it asks if you want to use it for news and entertainment. This is something Apple removed that they've brought back, but they've brought it back with a warning if you select to use it. It says summarizations may change the meaning of the original headlines, verify information. So that's something where it was getting some of the headlines wrong, so you need to verify the information, and it's just making sure you're aware of that. So that's something that they updated and is brought back to iOS 26 and iPadOS 26 Beta 4. You also have some settings for it. So if you go into your notification settings here, go to notification summaries or summarize notifications, you can then select the apps that it's actually summarizing as well. So if you want to customize this, you can, and then summarize whatever you want it to summarize based on news or anything else. However, the news app is not here despite choosing it when setting this up. But then if you scroll down in the long list of apps here, and then you can go into news, and you can see the options here. So immediate delivery, time sensitive, announce, and then summarize notifications is here as well. So they have it in kind of odd spots, but you can enable it if you have Apple Intelligence. Another new option we have has to do with phone. Just like we have on iOS 26, we can now screen unknown callers. However, we have a couple new options, such as ask reason for calling. We can silence it as well, or say never. So ask reason for calling, it says calls from unsaved numbers will be asked for more information before iPhone rings. Calling and data rates may apply. Then you can have never, calls from unsaved numbers will ring, and missed calls will be displayed on the recents list. Also, we can silence calls from unsaved numbers, and then they'll be sent to voicemail. So that's something that you can change now, which is a nice selection option where we didn't have that before. If we go into Files, there's a change. Within Files, you'll see I have a thumbnail from a few years ago with a comparison. If I press and hold on this, I can then go to Open With, and under Open With, we now have Preview with Quick Look. They added this in iOS and iPadOS, so now if we want to Quick Look, just tap on it, and we can quickly look at it and then open it with another app such as Pixelmator. So this is a nice little change they've brought, where before we had to open it directly with whatever app we selected, so much, much better. Now there's a few other subtle changes that have happened on this update. One of them has to do with the camera icon. You can see it here. On the previous update, it had a larger bezel and looked a little bit different. Maybe they're changing this to look more like their upcoming devices, maybe the next iPad or iPhone, but either way, the icon has changed and it may change again. Others have said that there's a subtle change to the map icon as well, depending on which mode you're in, but either way, it looks pretty familiar to me, but there are slight changes here and there throughout the OS. Another small change is if we go into the Weather app, bring over the sidebar, they've now made the sidebar dark blue to sort of better separate it from what we have over here with our menu. So again, some small changes throughout. And another change that some people may like or may not like has to do with Safari. If we go into Safari, within Safari, when we want to swipe forward or back, we now have to do it from the edge of the display again. It no longer works from just slightly inside the edge of the display. We now have to go directly from the edge. So this is something that may or may not be great to you. Some people love it, some people don't, but either way, I've seen quite a few people happy that they've brought this back this way. Now, a couple things I wanted to mention from previous betas. Since I didn't cover beta 3, I was traveling. If we go into podcasts, maybe we'll go into my library here. So we'll go into shows, and within a show, maybe we'll go into this one, and then we'll go to our settings. Within our settings, we now have the option to automatically download, of course, but then if we scroll down, we can then adjust specific settings custom for this show. So this is a new update here where default settings can be used or customized settings based on what you prefer. Something else I'm very happy they brought back has to do with swiping between apps. If we go into settings and switch to windowed mode, and then maybe go into Safari, so we have a window of Safari, we can still swipe between apps now. This is a gesture I used all the time, and when they took it away with beta 1, it was really difficult to sort of retrain myself to swipe home, then go back into an app. I'm used to just sort of swiping back and forth between them, and you can do that since beta 3. However, one thing you can't do in beta 4 still is bring in slide over. So that doesn't appear to be back yet. Maybe they'll continue listening and bring it back in future updates. Now, there are still a few bugs and bug fixes in this update. One of them has to do with widgets. So if we press and hold here, we'll go ahead and edit and add a widget. Within the shortcuts widget, if maybe we select this one here, you can see all of the icons pertaining to the specific app that would open are now showing properly. However, if we add this, sometimes they change and don't work properly. So you may see black boxes here, you may see some graphical errors from time to time, but you can see that the icons are at least there, and that's a nice little update, and it looks better, but sometimes they sort of disappear or you'll have weird graphical issues over the top of them. Another thing they've fixed has to do with contacts. The search in contacts now works properly, so if we go into it, you'll see in the top right, we have the search bar, and we can go in and search again. Sometimes on iOS, this was disappearing. I hadn't heard of this on iPad, but at least it's fixed throughout iOS now. Now, there are other bugs throughout, but if we take a look at the overall release notes, we'll go to iPadOS 26 Beta 4. Apple has quite a few release notes here, quite a few resolved issues, quite a few known issues that still remain, so still quite a bit of work to do on iOS and iPadOS 26 Beta 4, but if you're having issues, make sure it's not listed here, and if it isn't listed here, then you could submit feedback. Now, one thing you may already notice as far as overall performance, it does seem to be a little bit laggy from time to time. ProMotion does not seem to be as smooth in this one, and you'll see just as I'm swiping there, there's a little bit of slowness. So going to the library, the app library, this is the latest iPad and the fastest one with the most RAM, and it's still a little bit slow. So even going into the app library, scrolling sometimes doesn't feel like it's 120 Hertz, and there's still some issues throughout. So if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26 Beta 4, I would wait for the public beta, see if they maybe do a re-release or a revision to patch this. But either way, it's a nice update, but still has some bugs throughout, so just be aware of that. As far as battery life, I have used this for a full day at this point, so let's go ahead and take a look. Battery is okay, but not great at this point. So if we take a look at battery health on this iPad, we're at 94% with 185 cycles. And if we go back to the overall battery life, we'll take a look here at battery usage. And within battery usage, if we take a look at yesterday, we had 69% usage with 4 hours and 42 minutes of screen on time, 13 hours and 20 minutes of screen off time. So overall, it's okay. It's not phenomenal. You'll see I'm getting more usage though from previous days. I am getting a little bit more battery life than beta 3. It's still not up to 6 or 8 hours, but it is getting a lot better. Now, as far as the next releases, of course, we're waiting for those. The public beta, I would expect any day at this point, so it could be out by the time you're watching this video. It could even be Friday, or if there's a revision or re-release, it could be sometime next week. So Apple has not really said specifically when it's supposed to be out. However, I do believe it was supposed to be out last week and they delayed it. So it looks like at this point, there's been some issues with it. I would rather have it correct before it's released as a public beta to make sure that it's working properly. And so that's everything so far in iPadOS 26 Beta 4. Nice little changes here and there, refinements, and of course it includes all of the major changes that come with iOS 26 in general. Now, if you found anything else, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.